the last report is the report of the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Pension in respect of pension from Pastor Niyi Adeba for the rehabilitation of Ife Wara Road, Osun State, which was actually rehabilitated by the Redeemed Christian Church of God. Mr. President, after receiving submission from both respondents and pensioners, the committee came out with the following findings and recommendations. Recommendations on page findings on page page 8, 5.0, observations and findings. After carefully studying the in the ministry's budget. 3, that the commencement date of the contract was 7 March 2011 with a completion date of 7 November 2011. 4, that the consequent upon the advance payment guarantee APG provided by the contractor Kali Construction Nigeria Limited December 2011 respectively, but the contractor only achieved 26.21% project completion and stopped further work on the project. That after several warnings to the contractor on his dismal performance up to June 2015, when it was given final warning, there was no further payment made to the contractor after the last payment in 2011, and the contract has not been formally terminated. See, that if our committee Digging on RCG to intervene in 4 million naira for the rehabilitation of Ife Road, without seeking permission or approval from the Osun State government or the federal government. And finally, the Kali Nigeria Limited was not paid any further claim by the Federal Ministry of Works between 2016 and 2019, as claimed by RCG, after it was paid 99.4 million for the first and 52.1 million for the second interim statement in March and December 2011. Recommendation. Based on the finding above, the committee hereby recommends as follows: that the Senate do commend the Redeemed Christian Church of God, RCU, for alleviating the suffering of Ife Wara community by rehabilitating Ife Wara Road in Osun State, Nigeria. 2, that the Senate do urge the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to formally terminate the contract for the rehabilitation of Ife Wara Road in Osun State, awarded to Kali Construction Nigeria Limited in 2010 and abandoned by the contractors in 2011, and also recovered the sum of 145 million, being total amount released to the contractor for rehabilitation of the road before it abandoned the project. And 3, that the Senate do urge the Federal Ministry of Works, Housing, not to make any refund to the Redeemed Christian Church of God for rehabilitating Ife Wara Road in Osun State, because the church rehabilitated the road as a corporate social responsibility support to Osun State. I so submit for consideration, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any comments? We'll go to the recommendations. That the Senate do commend the Redeemed Christian Church of God, RCCG, for alleviating the suffering of Ife Wara community by rehabilitating the Ife Wara Road in Osun State of Nigeria. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against any ayes have it. Recommendation 2, that the Senate do urge the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to formally terminate the contract for the rehabilitation of the Ife Wara Road in Osun State, awarded to Cartel Costrazioni Nigeria Limited in 2010 and abandoned by the contractor since 2011, and also recovered the sum of 140 million naira, being total amount released. Any refund to to the Redeemed Christian Church of God, RCCG, for rehabilitating the Ife-Ifewara Road in Osun State because the church rehabilitated the road as a corporate social responsibility support to Osun State. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief was read yesterday, 22nd June 2021, and by virtue of the communication, the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2021 is deemed to have been read the first time. Mr. President, with your permission, I move that the bill be read the second time.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate you just go ahead.
Mr. President, my highly respected and esteemed colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill, which seeks to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, a total sum of 895,800,000 naira, 917 naira only, of which 173 billion the sum of 722 billion capital expenditure for the year ending 31st May 2021. 31st December 2021. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, you will recall that the President Commander-in-Chief, through a communication to the President of the Senate, forwarded the 2021 supplementary appropriation bill to the Senate, which was read on this floor of the Senate on Tuesday, 22nd June 2021, which was yesterday. The bill is deemed to have been read the first time by virtue of that letter. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the 2021 supplementary budget is needed to fund defense, security, and health-related expenditure and for treatment of additional 50,000 patients under the Nigerian Comprehensive Aid Program in states, which is to procure additional equipment captured in this year's capital expenditure on defense and security to procure additional equipment. The The defense and security component of the bill is to procure additional equipment captured in this year's capital expenditure on defense and security to tackle the prevalence of defense and security related challenges that face this country. Considering the state of security in the country, and law and order and security institutions and agencies urgently need to procure additional equipment and other resources in response to the prevalent security challenges facing the country. Similarly, the 2021 Supplementary Appropriation Bill takes provision for procurement and administration of COVID-19 vaccines, whose terms were still uncertain at the time of finalizing the 2021 budget. Under the vaccine program developed by the Ministry of Health and National Primary Health Care Agency, eligible Nigerians are to be vaccinated between 2021 and 2022. In order to address the urgent problem of oxygen-related availability in the country and avoid potential loss of lives, provision is also made for the procurement and installation of new oxygen implants nationwide and repaired existing plants in FCT hospitals. Mr. President, considering the state of insecurity in our country, our security and law and order institutions and agencies urgently need to consider additional achievements as well. As a step in addressing the lingering labor crisis in the health sector of this country, the 2021 Supplementary Appropriation Bill proposes additional funds for public service wage adjustment to cater for sundry wage-related issues in the health sector and also in other sectors of the economy, which, if not resolved, can add to the prevalent sense of instability in the polity. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the supplementary budget request is for a total sum, as I said earlier, of 895,842,465,917 naira only. The federal government, in this supplementary appropriation bill, proposes to fund the 45.63 billion of the 83.56 billion required for the COVID vaccine program by drawing on existing World Bank loans, which would be restructured, as well as other grants totaling $113.22 million. The balance of 37.93 billion required for COVID-19 vaccines, salaries, and other related expenses totaling 41.69 billion naira, and the 48.20 billion recurrent component of the defense security expenditure would be funded by drawing 135 billion from some special reserve and levy accounts. The supplementary appropriation proposes to fund the balance of 722.40 billion for capital expenditure on defense and security and capital supplementation from new borrowings in the absence of any supplementary revenue sources. Despite the needs of other sectors, the supplementary budget proposal is limited to just these critical emergency areas and emergency areas of need due to our severe fiscal constraints of the government, while keeping Nigeria COVID-19 free has been a challenge for this government, which will continue to be addressed until this dreaded pandemic is over. A key step has been for all the adult population to receive its first dose of the vaccine, while the second round of the vaccination has already commenced, and with this supplementary appropriation, we hope we will get it right. Finally, Mr. President, I believe that all the proposals in this supplementary appropriation are laudable and will enhance the critical need of the citizens of the country. I therefore urge our colleagues to support the second reading of this bill for further legislative action. I so propose.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I think the issue at stake is quite very clear. They are not contentious. Two key issues: the topical issue of security challenge in our country, which all of us know and are concerned about. And the second is the global pandemic of the novel coronavirus. And I think they are not
supplementary bill. Number one, the country is in severe distress as far as security situation is concerned. Virtually all the geopolitical zones are having one security challenge or the other. And the intervention of the federal government at this critical time is very timely. And help. The pandemic is still around. To cater for the vaccination of Nigerians. And we all know international troubles will be very difficult without getting vaccination. And even local troubles within the country, if you are not vaccinated, you will not be allowed to board any aircraft in the next 6 months based on the information we are getting. So it is important that we support the second reading of this supplementary appropriation bill, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you very much.
Senator Solomon Adiola Olamilekon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague. Mr. President, let me also join my colleague in commending the effort of President Muhammad Buhari for coming up with this supplementary budget at this point in time. As we are all aware that there are two major issues currently confronting us as a nation, and one of which also confronting us globally. The first is the issue of the insecurity. And you quite agree with us that there is need for proper funding of all our security apparatus for us to be able to confront these security challenges. And secondly, the issue of global pandemic. The whole world is involved in this. Nigeria. And don't forget that there are new variants in town. The Delta variant is there. The British variant is there.
The DSP is protesting.
And if you look at the structure of the financing of the supplementary budget, it is explicit enough. The only borrowing element of this 800 more than 75% of this supplementary budget is for capital expenditure, which is committed to our national security. And the borrowing plan to do this is just 715 the issue of issuance of about 105 from special account and also special levies. Special account, these are already existing. existing account where the funds are already there. And I believe that through judicious application of this fund, it is just in preparation and also preparing us to ensure that issues confronting us as a nation is adequately attended to.
And Senator Kabir Abdullahi, representing Katsina Central. Mr. President, if we look at this supplementary budget proposals, we see that, of course, two important aspects. Of almost all 30%, I mean 70%. If this chamber will make sure that at least a substantial amount of this supplementary provision go to this ammunition, because definitely our militaries and also the police and everybody are liking this military that we wanted to. Put in this under security issues.
Dixon, Bayelsa West.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues. I'm Henry Sedake Dixon, representing Bayelsa West. I just want to observe firstly that this supplementary budget deals with the national situation of insecurity and therefore deserves the support. And similarly, it deserves to be supported. But I just want to observe firstly, Mr. President, as you already know, Bayelsa had only one senator in this chamber when the current budget was discussed, deliberated upon, and passed. But nevertheless, the senator who was there was strong enough to carry the entire burden of the state with your support. And this chamber performed its role in legislating for the whole country. But let me just put it on notice that 2/3 of Bayelsa was not part of that. And I thought that in this supplementary appropriation, that some issues that are germane to the stability and security of that part of our country, because what affects a part affects the whole, should be attended to. But I've seen that it is only limited in a way, just direct appropriation to support the security services. The other point I wanted, therefore, in that connection to make is that there appears to be no special regard paid to supporting the security services that are stabilizing the region that produces the resources that keeps this country going. We are happy that there is relative stability there. Also, draw attention to the need to and so on and so forth. So, if I had the opportunity, I would have said this budget, supplementary budget, should also have some provisions dealing with support for the police, dealing with support for some of the services that the security officers are doing in the Niger Delta area. As I said earlier, on matters that have to do with stability, security, and health and well-being, there is no real division. And this budget, this supplementary appropriation, has my support and deserves to be supported by all. Finally, just to say that having brought this to Mr. Senate President's attention, I hope that when it gets to your kingdom, when we'll be dealing with the main appropriation bill for next year, that some of the now to support the security services in the Niger Delta and Bayelsa will be captured at that time. Thank you very much.
Senator Adigian.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain this supplementary budget that has been brought to the Senate by Mr. President, and particularly to align myself very strongly with the provision that has been made to strengthen the fight against insecurity. Mr. President, there's a scripture that says that no soldier goes to war at his own expense. It therefore means that in equipping the military and our insecurity challenge that we are facing, the two components, the human component and of course the equipment component, has to be addressed. And this supplementary budget is making provision to equip the security agencies, particularly the military.
Distinguished colleague, you need to round up because we have to close by 2. We have no extended time, so there are a few comments that will happen and then we close. So round up, please.
Let me say that I stand to support the passage of the supplementary budget so that the military and the security agencies can be better equipped to successfully prosecute
Mr. President, why none of us will oppose
security in the country, and also the issue of COVID-19. But Mr. President, you have a budget of 890-something billion. Numerous more problems than the one you seek to address. I said this because you look at the financing item of the budget. Mr. President, the financing item of the budget are from borrowing, and borrowing forms the bigger stock of the financing item, which is 715 billion. In the main budget, we have a very high deficit level, which of course have affected the macroeconomic management. We are having inflation. Nobody knows how this inflation are coming. And so we must be careful in addressing this problem. And so for me, Mr. President, we have discussed the issue of quantitative easing, which is what I think is going to happen here. The Committee on Finance have, in their investigation, recovered money from ministries and departments of over $1 trillion. And so I do not see how, if we recover that money, we are going to borrow when we know that this borrowing adds to the deficit of the country. And so, Mr. President, for me, borrowing is what worries me, and the financing item of the deficit is what should worry everybody. While we agree totally that there's a need for Mr. President to fight insurgency, terrorism, and all of that, we should also be mindful of the microeconomic management of the country, which has skyrocketed the exchange rate, which has brought about inflation in the country. And so if we have 135 billion revenue inflow, and you have a budget of 890 something, with a deficit of 760, Mr. President, that is bad budgeting. And this Senate should advert the minds of Nigerians that yes, we agree that this supplementary budget will pass, but the people who are responsible for this budgeting should think deeper. Like I said, Mr. President, because you were being distracted, the Committee on Finance have recovered over $1 trillion naira from ministries and departments. So why are we borrowing 800 and something and then adding to the deficit, which we already have over $5 trillion deficit? Because this will add that let the Minister of Finance seek the money that has been recovered by the Committee on Finance, which was an
But you have only 1.5 minutes because we have to close before 2 or just by 2.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I would like to seize this opportunity to thank Mr. President for this supplementary budget. You see, particularly if you look at the issue of security, the budget is purely for security and we support it. But of course, there are some areas that we believe that other things should have been looked at carefully. If you look at the Office of the National Security Advisor, because of the counter-terrorism center that is currently under construction, I think we will try to look at that, and then the issue of this unmanned drones, and then also the trackers, because by the time we do that, I think we should be able to
criminalities, insurgencies, and banditry. Because a lot of people have been displaced
from the IDPs, and I've not seen any provision to support so that they are stable, and that way we can be able to find a way to rehabilitate them back. Maybe when we come to look at the details, it will be necessary we look at succor for those who are falling victims of all this banditry.
Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Those in favor of the motion that this bill be now read a second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a supplementary bill for an act authorized the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 895,842,465,917 naira only, of which 173,445,506,644 and 64,000 naira only is for current non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 722,396,959,253 naira only is for contribution to the development
Bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 895 billion 664 naira only is for current non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 722 billion 396,959,253 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2021. Second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriations to report back Tuesday next week. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Leader of the Senate.
This distinguished Senate to suspend consideration of all other items on our today's order paper to another legislative.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion as moved.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Those in favor of the motion that we stand down to consideration of the remaining items on the order paper till another legislative, they say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Are we coming tomorrow? So what is it? So we are not coming. My distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for the Senate to adjourn proceedings until Tuesday next week. I so move.
I have a letter from Senator Dr. Patrick Ifanyuba, Anambra South Senatorial District, Federal Republic of Nigeria, notification of my candidature and request for prayers and support. With the best regards and due recourse to your distinguished office, I write to express my sincere appreciation to you and my distinguished colleagues for according me a cordial relationship in the course of my stay so far in the 9th Senate, despite being the only senator under the aegis of the Young Progressive Party. Electoral Commission, INEC, have successfully emerged as the gubernatorial candidate of the Young Progressive Party, YPP,